Greetings and welcome to Meet a CHM Family Member. My name is Cory MacDonald. I am the Engagement Director for the Choroideremia Research Foundation. With me tonight, I'm kind of excited for this. This will be the first time I've interviewed a mom and a son at the same time. And also I'm excited about it because they're long friends, going way back. So I'd like you guys to meet Sondra Hoffman and her son, Josh Hoffman. Thank you guys for
Thanks for
thank
having
you for
me.
being here tonight. So why don't we start with, well, you guys you live in Florida now. Are you near each other, Josh, or
No, I'm in Orlando by Disney.
okay. And then Sondra, you're a little further
Yeah.
south, right?
Yep, we're about 2 hours away in Palm Beach. So
Okay.
yeah, we're back in Palm Beach County, which is where Josh grew up.
Mm-hmm. Oh, very nice.
Mm-hmm.
So Josh, what do you do for a living nowadays?
I work for Marriott International at one of the Disney hotels down in Disney.
Oh, nice. The hotel gig. And I always thought this was, when I first met Sondra via the original email-based support group that we had for CHM in the late 90s, I always thought it was, serendipity that Sondra, you work in the eye care field.
I do. I've been in the ophthalmology space, both clinical and operational, for 4 decades. I'm not that old though, but for for a lot of years. So it was rather serendipitous that our paths crossed in this way, and that Joshua was brought into my life as well.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, is that you are not a carrier for choroideremia. You adopted Josh. So
Correct.
you were, pardon the pun, truly blindsided when you discovered that Josh had choroideremia. How old were you, Josh? You were
I think I was 4.
You were 4. Yeah. He was 4, and the story is that, like we hear so often, we walked into a restaurant coming out from sunlight into a dimly lit area, and he just sort of froze and said, I can't see, and just gripped onto my hand. And my friend who was with us, also in ophthalmology on the clinical side, we both looked at each other and we're like, yeah, I'm thinking this might be an RP kind of thing, because we had some experience with RP. So the next day, we went to my office to see the specialist in my office. And then the very next day, we were down at Bascom Palmer's seeing Sam Jacobson, who you remember.
Mhm.
And Josh was initially diagnosed with retinitis pigmentosa, as so many folks with choroideremia are. And so I did all my research on retinitis pigmentosa, and learned everything I possibly could, and talked to everybody I knew. And then a year later, we went back to see Sam Jacobson, and Joshua's diagnosis was changed to choroideremia. So then we went through the genetic testing and got the confirmation of that when he was 4 years old. And then I think it was shortly thereafter, Cory, maybe a year or 2 later, is when I met you. Maybe. Yeah. We'd have to do the math on that, but
Yeah.
we'd have to do the math on that, because Josh is 34 now, so that was 30 years ago. So
Yeah.
I think yeah.
I was going to say, once we get beyond quarter century, my mind goes fuzzy on remembering dates. So
I was having that same conversation today.
So yeah, and that kind of started the path. And now, Josh, what do you as a CHMer, what do you like to do when you're not working?
I like to be outdoors and active, but ever since come back to Florida, that kind of is hindered because it's so hot. But when the weather's cooler, meaning like 50 or below, or 60, I like to be out, out with friends, just outside. But then if I'm inside, I'm just into movies and, hanging out with friends and, kind of really up for anything unless I tried it and I didn't like it before.
There you go. That's the way to do it. And Sondra, what do you do in your off time?
In my off time, we play tennis. I am a mindfulness meditation instructor, so I do meditation, and I like to read, and I still work a lot. Although I'm working remotely now, I'm not inside the office anymore, which is wonderful. And so yeah, and binge whenever I find something binge worthy to watch on Netflix, Hulu, or something like that.
It's funny when COVID came down, I saw a news story that, they were talking about these companies that were having, issues with, instituting a virtual workforce and, this, that, and the other thing. And I'm sitting there going, gosh, I've been working virtually since 2000. I should hire myself out as a consultant and make some money on this,
Tell everybody how to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was because we've been like that, as a foundation, we've been like that
Ever.
forever. Yeah, exactly. Forever. But yeah, I'm trying to remember though. Yeah, the last time what was the last time we got together? Oh, when we were it was right prior to COVID.
Yeah, it was in Orlando
for the American Academy of Optometry.
That's right. We met you in Orlando, along with who was with you?
Jason and
Jason and Kathy, who's just starting.
Yeah.
And Josh and David and I, and we met at the Italian place. It was delicious. It was great. It was a great evening. Yeah,
that was a lot of fun. It had been a while at that point, other than actually 2012.
Yeah.
I saw you guys at the Boston conference. So
exactly.
As a matter of fact, that was the last time I saw Jerry.
Yeah.
Matter of fact.
That's right.
Was there. So anyway, we won't get, we'll get past that topic. So and I'm gonna throw out some questions that basically I'd like to get both of your, they're kind of written for, a CHMer, but I'd like to get both perspectives too from a parent, if you guys don't mind. So no, how has CHM personally affected you, Josh? And then I'll let Sondra answer as well.
I mean, it honestly affects everything. You just learn to adapt to it, unable to do certain occupations for work, which was, difficult to deal with after college. And then there's the same things with, socially, hanging out with friends and going out and doing stuff, and you're able to adapt to it because I've been doing it for so long, and you make do of the best that you can. But, I prefer going out with friends and stuff because you're able to have, like a buddy, if it's dark, or just, able to see things, because even though when you get somewhere you could have a great time, it's still the journey sometimes could be difficult. But you really just learn to adapt to it. And luckily nowadays there's so much things that are able to help you do these things, especially getting to a place like Ubering is wonderful. I mean, if it was based on taxi situation, I probably would never go anywhere. So it's been, it could always be worse. So I just try to, do what I can to do it and don't let it stop me, I guess.
Yeah, I think Uber is probably one of the greatest inventions for people, low vision and blind ever. It'd be like, it's right up there with the white cane. I mean, it opens up so many things. I couldn't believe the difference doing Uber. But yeah, I remember back when I was, in my 20s, I had a good friend of mine. And when we would go out, he always made sure that he wore a light colored shirt. Because he knew because they were easier for me to see him, So, but I had my moments during those days, asking a guy with long hair to dance because I didn't realize it was,
That's also why I don't dance at clubs, because I always honestly have that fear. And I'm a nice guy, but you don't want to give someone the wrong impression. So I try.
Exactly.
I just think about it vice versa. If I was dancing with someone and it turned out to be opposite, I wouldn't be too happy. And I try to think of someone else's perspective and try to limit that.
I don't
avoid
I
those
don't dance.
opportunities.
I personally, I don't dance just as a public service.
As a funny story, I'll say this: when I was in college, I went with some people to one of our school dances, and one of them had an extra friend, so I went with her. And I remember it was so dark in there, I was dancing, and then all of a sudden I was wondering where she went, and I looked down and she tripped herself. So
No.
but it was one of those situations. I didn't know where she went until I heard some noise, because she fell on her own. I don't know how that happens, but
Oh my goodness. Oops. That's
I know. I thought it would usually it's me who does that, so it was kind of refreshing. I felt bad, but
maybe it was one of those sympathy trips. She knew that.
Yeah, maybe.
So Sondra, now how about you? Like, when you got the first the RP, then CHM, and I'm sure that when they switched the diagnosis, you were a bit more relieved, because we're better, CHMers are really intelligent and good looking. So, you knew
That's
Josh
right.
had that going for him, but
Exactly.
but how did that impact, especially, considering you work in this space? So
Yeah, and so I started over because there was back then, and even still today, there's not a lot of doctors who know choroideremia, right? So I spent a lot of time at Bascom Palmer's library, looking up whatever I could about choroideremia. I think I found 2 articles about choroideremia, and that was about it. And then I found your community, the choroideremia, I don't know, what were we called back then? Actually,
that was the Choroideremia group.
That's right. Yeah, it was just choroideremia group online. So I found the FFB, but there were mostly our peers there, and other, parents of our peers. So I just, you as a mom, you think forward of how this is going to impact your child's life, because as moms, biological or otherwise, a mother is a mother, we are just used to kissing everything and making it all better, right? And just wanting the best for our children and everybody to be healthy, happy, and well. And I knew, probably because of the career that I was in, that what the downside could be, if there is a downside. I was very scared, Cory, because we did a lot of talking back then, and I really leaned into you and Art Man and everybody, okay, what do I do? It's time for him to go to camp. Do we let him go to camp?
I remember that conversation.
Yes, I know. Should we let him play, Pee Wee baseball? And all of you guys were just my community, my big brotherhood, who said, let him do everything. Just let him do whatever he wants to do. He's going to walk into bushes, which he did a number of times. Right, Josh? And, but he played baseball. Granted, he was out there picking the weeds in the outfield, but, he did, play baseball. And so as a mom, I just always wanted to make sure that he had all the tools that he needed to be successful. So getting back to what Joshua had said earlier, when he answered this question for you about how choroideremia has affected him, and that's one of the things that I really admire so much about Joshua, is his tenacity, and his stubbornness too, because he never let choroideremia stop him from doing anything, ever. Of course, he doesn't go out to bars at night because it's dark, and for all the reasons that he just explained to you. But he moved out, when he went to college, he drove until, at the end of college. And then it was time to stop driving. Of course, him and his father thought it was a really good idea for him to drive a Harley while he was in college, because he didn't have the peripheral vision to see as well in a car. So he could see much better on a Harley. So he drove a Harley and did it carefully, thank God. And but when he finished college and we realized what his, true level of vision was, the determination was made that it was time to stop driving. And back then we had no Uber. So Josh can tell you how difficult that was for him at that time. But so I really was always so grateful to not only have my ophthalmic community, but more importantly, to have the other moms that I met through this group to connect with. And, I connected with a lot of them and became a mentor mother, and really found a sisterhood within the wives and the mothers in the group, because not everybody understands what it's like to be a caretaker, a wife, a mother, a spouse, of somebody who is gradually losing their vision, of which with choroideremia varies with everybody. So back when Josh was first diagnosed, or in the years shortly thereafter, I met you would connect me with every new mom who would come into the group, and we would talk, and we would tell them the same thing. Look, it's different. I would impart to them what you all imparted to me. It's different for everybody. Yes, you got this diagnosis. We're constantly working on cures, and that was, I don't know how many years ago. And just let them be a kid, and just keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening in the Choroideremia Research Foundation, and get as involved as you can, and just keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening. And that's just always been my focus since Joshua's diagnosis, and today still. So, but he was right. It hasn't stopped him from doing anything. When he lived out in Colorado, he moved out there for 2 years. He would get me on video and take me on hikes with him. And I would be, oh gosh, that's like really so beautiful. And he would pano for me and show me where he is. And then all of a sudden his camera would pano downward. And I'm like, Josh, you're right on the precipice, right? And he's like, oh no, it's fine. I'm really fine. I'm like, can you just back up a little bit? Just a little bit.
You got to be the mom at some point.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, I love going on these hikes with him, but I'm like, back away from the edge, buddy.
I still remember that conversation when, gosh, I think he was 8 when, I think you were 8, Josh, when he was going to overnight camp.
Yeah.
And I got on the phone with you and Jerry, and I remember, I asked you 2 questions. Does he have a flashlight? And does he have friends that are going? And you said yes. And I said, you'll be fine.
Yeah. And he was his first year, right, Josh?
Yeah. Flashlights make the world of difference.
Oh yeah. I ain't kidding. I have them all around my house to this day. They do make a world of difference. But yeah, I fully understand when you had to stop driving. Well, I never had to stop driving. I never drove. I made that decision, as a teenager to not drive. There is a CHMer, by the way, in Minnesota who was driving motorcycles until he was 60.
Wow.
Yeah, he was a slow mover.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was lucky enough growing up. Here in Springfield, we have a pretty good public transportation system. And I had, surrounded by friends I grew up with, and still am to this day. I still have, people that I've known since I was 12 years old that I'm still in contact with locally and hang out with, just about every week we see each other. And so I'm very lucky in that respect that they never had, if I needed a ride, they gave me a ride.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, when I was younger, I had the advantage that Josh didn't. I'm sure, Josh, you didn't have, where it was safe enough for me to stick out my thumb.
Yeah, I didn't have that opportunity.
Yeah, unfortunately for you guys, the world has changed a little bit in that respect. But I worked at a place when I was a teenager. That was from my house was an hour-long walk. And
Wow.
if I took the bus, it would take me an hour and a half because I'd have to take two different buses. I'd have to take one downtown and another one back up again. And so I would just get out on the main drag and stick my thumb out. And 9 times out of 10, I got a ride. And, luckily never had an issue. So it
Yeah.
was, but yeah, Uber is what a game changer that was. Uber, Lyft, all the various, ride share things that they have. It's, it definitely has. I know that I was introduced to that by, and he's on my list to chat with soon, Eric Wino.
Uh-huh.
He was using Uber before I even heard about it,
Mm-hmm.
and he introduced it to me, and I went, oh, this is nice. And then
Oh,
I went to download the app and found out the phone I was using was way too old to handle it, so I had to upgrade my phone before I could get Uber. But but now I'm all set. But so, and speaking of that, do you, well, besides Uber, do you have any other adaptive type technologies that you use?
Honestly, I'm not sure. I mean, of course, when I use the computer or my phone, the font's bigger, and I like the dark backlighting because I think, the black background's easier on the eyes than bright white. And I also like how, you could zoom in easily on your phone. That's why I prefer a phone, a smartphone over a laptop, because it's easy just to zoom in with your finger. So I find that. Also, the flashlight on the phone, I use that quite often. And I mean, I use a cane, but adaptive, I don't use like a magnifier glass on documents or anything. Usually, like, documents and paper is the only time I have an issue if it's really, really tiny, but luckily nothing's really that small, honestly. I still prefer books over Kindle because I like reading words, not screens.
Oh gosh, I'm right with you on that, man.
Yeah.
I so miss reading. I can read my Kindle. I have it set up. It's inverted colors with bold white font, and it's a little bigger than normal, and I can read it on the Kindle. But man, I miss flipping pages.
Yeah.
There's something about it,
The feel of paper.
Yeah, and the smell of a book. I still go, I'll walk into a used bookstore and just
Great. Yeah. It's like going to a library,
Yeah, it's just nothing like that. It's a so yeah, I miss that part of it. But I actually have not tried since I've had my cataract surgery to read a regular book. So who knows? Maybe I can get back to that. But
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, it's interesting that Josh told you that he uses a cane. But Josh went through O&M training shortly after stopping driving. But the way Josh uses his cane is to pretty much keep it folded up in his, backpack, just so it's sort of there. He doesn't extend it that often, I think, because he just doesn't, he's not real comfortable with the stigma of it yet.
That's,
but-
it is very, very difficult. I don't know many people that dove into using a cane full-time right away. You kind of ease into it, and you do what's comfortable, and then you get a little more comfortable, and and eventually you get into the full-time, and I've told this story before, that the first time I ever used a cane, it wasn't even my cane. It was I was running a convenience store. I had a regular customer who was also legally blind, and I was going to the Olympics in Atlanta with my buddy, and he said, "You'll need a cane." And I said, "I don't need a cane." And he said, "Yes, you do." I said, "I don't even own one." He said, "I have a spare. You can borrow it." I said, "I don't use it." He goes, "You don't need to use it. You just hold it up in front of you." Right. So like every excuse I had, he had an answer for.
Oh, God.
And so I begrudgingly took the cane. And the first thing I noticed was at the airport, we got to pre-board. That's kind of nice, but by the time I got back from Atlanta, I came to the understanding that if I had not had that cane with me, with the hundreds of thousands of people that were there for the Olympics that you had to move around within. If I had not had that cane with me, my experience would not have been anywhere near as good as it was. And the day after I got home, I called up and signed up for mobility training.
Yeah.
But even after that, I only used my cane initially if I was going out at night or if I was going to places where there was a lot of people.
Yeah.
And outside of that, I didn't use it.
Yeah. I understand that. Josh and I were in Disney World once, and Josh prefers to buddy walk. You know, everybody knows buddy walking. So we were in Disney, and Disney's crowded, but he had his cane with him. And but he wanted to buddy walk. Well, it's really hard to have a conversation with somebody behind you, with other people all around you. So I felt like I was alone in the park. So I'm like, Josh, either extend your cane, it'll be like the parting of the seas, because it'll be like a mom with a stroller. Everybody's just going to move out of your way, you know, and just make room for you. And it'll be much more comfortable, because one, we can sort of walk side by side and be like together in the park, walking together. Or let's just leave because this isn't enjoyable. So he said, no, I'm not going to extend. And I said, okay, well, think about it, because we're going to leave in 10 minutes if you don't. And so he extended, you know, or just took it out. I mean, he didn't, you know, opened it, and much like you were just stating, and it was exactly like that. It was just like people just got out of the way, and we walked side by side, and we had a lovely rest of the day in the park. So I was really proud of him for having made that personal choice to do that. And it just, right, Josh, it just made for a much more enjoyable day, right?
Yeah.
The cane can be magic. It really can. It's like I had my 35th birthday. My boss had season tickets for the New England Patriots.
Nice.
And on my 35th birthday, they happened to be playing my beloved San Francisco 49ers. So he took me to the game. And there was a group of about 16 of us. You know, we did the whole tailgate thing, and you know, just had and of course I'm dressed head to toe 49ers, right down to my 49ers socks. I had everything. Okay. I was representing, but it was so funny because I was dressed like that. Of course, we're in Foxborough. Everybody's dressed in Patriots gear. So yeah, I was getting busted, you know, and I'd had my cane with me, but I didn't have it out. I had it in I had a pair of jeans that had the little leg pocket thing, and I had the cane in there. And of course, people were, you know, busting me and everything, and just merciless with picking on me.
I'm sure.
Well, halftime came around, and the line for the men's room was about 2 miles long. And I happened to glance over to the right, and it was kind of a paved area. So it was all asphalt, kind of a little hill going down, and kind of bent around. And there was a double wide porta potty with a ramp access and a handicap placard on the door with a guard standing by the thing. Man, I whipped out that cane like Zorro. Made my way down there. The guard even opened the door for me. I mean, this was great, man. I went in, did what I needed to do. I came back out. That line hadn't moved for the men's room. There were guys in that line that were in my boss's group. They were pulling out 20s wanting to rent my cane for 5 minutes.
See, canes have benefits.
Oh yeah, and I just laughed at all of them. I'm going to get a beer. See ya. Yeah, the cane's a wonderful thing, but and actually, you know, using inverted colors is great. I recommend inverted colors to anyone, you know, sight impaired or not, because just the reduction of the glare on your eyes, it makes a huge difference. And just especially if you're staring at a screen for any length of time, it makes a big difference. So now you both have been to conferences, and I want to get your feedback. I'll ask Sondra this question. We'll let Mom go first this time, Josh. You've attended a couple of conferences over the years. What was your experience like going to conferences?
Oh, it's just like finding a community of love. It really is. It's just being with people who understand how you are feeling, unlike anybody else can, and the opportunities that we have to network with one another, as moms, as friends, as dads, as men affected, as kids affected, and the research that we have the opportunity to learn and hear from the doctors who are working so closely to find us a cure for choroideremia. So it's, to me, it's like filled me up again with hope, and love, and like a sisterhood or brotherhood. It's just, I would highly recommend it. You might remember years ago, I moderated one, but I asked the questions to the doctors remotely. That was one of the
I was gonna bring that up because that was 04 in New
Yeah,
Orleans, and you were at the conference.
I was.
And the first huge breakthrough in CHM research occurred when
Yeah,
Dr. Ciabra told us there was a mouse.
exactly.
Yep.
And that, and I'm getting chills right now just thinking about it. And that was like when, hope reigned victorious, right? Yeah, and it just, and hope remained victorious through today, and will continue, well into our future. And I know that there will be something for everybody, and I think that that's what we all need to hold on to, you all as affected, folks with choroideremia, and the moms and the new moms and the new dads. And but conferences, highly recommend attending, for all of the reasons that I mentioned. It's just an opportunity to get involved in the choroideremia community on a very personal level. I mean, we can be in the chat rooms, and we can, attend, virtual meetings and things, but there's nothing like being together, really.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's all about the family. Now, Joshua, what was it like? Because I'm trying to remember, you came to Boston. I think that was the only conference that you attended.
Yeah, I think that was the only one.
So now, what was that? What was that like for you?
Oh, I liked it. I mean, it was nice. It's a good way to meet other people and see how they're handling things and see what's going on in the research field. And yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. It's almost like a little convention for work, but not as boring.
Now, and I have to ask this question now, as a younger CHMer at that time. So that was what, almost 11 years ago now. Was it a shock, or how much of a shock was it for you, or a reality check, or slap, or however you want to phrase it, but seeing other CHMers, the older guys, walking around with canes and with guide dogs, and just kind of saying to yourself, this might be my future. And what was that like? Or did you think about that, or you were just too busy partying?
I don't remember too much from that long ago. And if I did, I mean, I honestly, if I saw an older gentleman with a stick, or a cane, or a dog, I mean, it wouldn't really make me feel sad, because that's later on, that's okay. I didn't see anyone my age or younger with that yet. So I said it's probable, but it's also, it depends. Everyone does it differently. I mean, I think some people my age, not necessarily using those things, but had not as good a vision, or stopped driving earlier. And I was grateful for that. And then there was one or two that were still doing stuff, which was a little hard, because it's they're a little older than me and still able to do these other things. But I was just grateful that I was still able to do a lot of things. And I don't, I always try to look at it that way. Like, there's always something worse that could happen. Like, you could have something else besides a vision problem.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't mind having a hearing problem. Rather, it'd be a little easier, but it's Yeah, I mean, I liked it though. I didn't think it was much shock, to tell you the truth.
Okay. Yeah, I always wonder about that with the younger guys, how that hit, But I as you were saying about hearing, I actually, whenever you always, there's that old saying, I cried that I had no shoes until I met a person who had no feet.
So funny you say that. That was Jerry's favorite line.
Really?
Jerry would say that all the time. For people that don't know, Jerry is Joshua's father, who
Yeah.
we lost almost 10 years ago now to a massive heart attack. And so he also had the Choroideremia Foundation in his heart. But yes, Jerry always said that phrase. In fact, he would say that to Joshua when he was little,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. It really, and I actually had it occur to me, well, not literally no feet, but I met a young lady back in the early 2000s when I was still doing the self-defense for the blind thing.
Mhm.
I was at I think it was an ACB convention, American Council for the Blind. I believe it was there, but I was doing a talk on, staying safe and avoiding hazards. And, there was a young lady in the audience. She was in her mid-20s and she had Usher's type 1. And
Mhm.
hers was quite severe in that she had, before the age of 18, she'd lost her hearing, and before the age of 20, she'd lost her sight.
Wow.
And I communicated with her through her helper, who they signed into each other's hands, which was amazing. She was doing it during my talk and it kept distracting me because I thought that was just fascinating.
Right.
But you come to find out, she was in her like late 20s. She was a real estate attorney with no sight and no hearing. And I'm like, okay, I have no excuse.
It just shows to go that there are no boundaries,
Yeah.
I mean,
I've told other CHMers before that, I've always considered, CHM to me has never been a wall. It's a speed bump. It might slow me down a little bit. I may have to come at something from a little bit of a different angle because of it, but it sure as hell ain't going to stop me.
yeah.
It's a speed bump. It's all it is. It's something that you can get past if you just figure out how to do it.
Yeah. And Joshua has done that. I think to him it's a speed bump too. It pisses him off, as it would.
Exactly.
I mean, it pisses him off, he yeah. But it to him, like he skis, he golfs, the only thing he doesn't do is drive. And but he's
and you can still ski, Josh. You could be 60, 65. It don't matter. You can still be skiing. I mean, you probably don't remember meeting him. I know he was at the Boston conference. Was Lynn Ogg from Texas. He and his wife goes. Lynn has no focal vision anymore. And he goes skiing every year.
Yeah. Does he ski with a guide or he skis with you just ski with a guide.
Yeah. And it's incredible. He loves it.
Yeah.
Absolutely loves it. So yeah, there's no stopping. And then I think of with the golfing, I think back, there was an article, gosh, back in the mid 80s, there was a gentleman, PGA player, Freddie Couples, who was quite good. And he was one of the celebrity spokespeople for the Foundation Fighting Blindness back then. And he played in a pro-am fundraiser. And he actually got beat by a guy with RP who was fully blind.
How about that?
On the golf course. Yep.
Yeah. All you need is a spotter, so I spot your ball for you.
Yep. And just line them up and let them go. And he was, so it's incredible what you can do. So now, so here's a question. I'll throw this one out to Sondra first is how do you feel about the way the research has gone and is going and where it's going?
So,
And caveat before you answer, Sondra is on the CRF research committee, so
yeah,
she's
I
got a
wrote that
little
down.
more, she's exposed to a little more information than a normal mom would normally be, but okay, go ahead.
Yes, and I was going to make that disclosure as well, and I'm delighted to sit on that committee and encourage everybody to get involved in whatever, capacity they can with the Choroideremia Research Foundation. But I think that during my time in this arena, we've had some really great highs, and we've had, some really, incredible lows. And we just came off of a really bad low, coming off of the Biogen and the Spark trials. But I remain hopeful because we continue to fund and research the brightest of the brightest. And there are so many researchers who are out there working on this one gene defect disease. And I don't even like to call it a disease. It's just or a defect or anything. It's just, we have one gene, we got one problem, and we have to find a fix for it. Yes, there are different mutations, and but how do I feel about the research? I feel thankful, I feel hopeful, and I've never given up hope. And I never will give up hope. And I think we're right on the brink, and I'm just waiting for Artman to call me one day, like he always does when something new comes out, or you to call me, or something to come across that Josh will be a suitable candidate for. So I'm grateful for all of the work that the CRF has done, and I remain hopeful, Cory, because I have to. And I think that I spread that hope to everybody. And I'll tell you today, like I've told all the moms over all the years, our boys are going to be okay. Our boys are going to be okay.
Yep. I used to tell my mom that. She never believed me, but
I know. I know.
now, how about you, Josh? Because you kind of get it from your mother and stay in the know. And so how does it make you feel that where it was and where it's going to at this point?
I mean, honestly, the way I see it, when you go up and down, and I think there's only really one way to go, and it's down. So that, to me, I think of it that way, and I just always has never been too hopeful at times, because you never want to get let down. But from the time when I was younger, of course, as technology changes, everything gets more advanced. So it's never been less than it was. It's always been gradually going up, I think. So yeah, I just yeah, that's what I think.
So, and I'll stay right with you with this, and you guys have both answered this question anyways, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What does the CRF mean to you, and how has it impacted your life?
Do you mean Choroideremia Research Foundation, or
Yes,
Choroideremia?
Yep. Well, you can just call it CRF. It's so much easier.
Yeah,
especially after a day of sessions at a conference, and you're sitting in the bar and having a couple of beers, and you try to say Choroideremia Research Foundation, and it sounds like a foreign language. So it's better to go with CRF. So anyway.
It's nice to have. When I hear it, it's nice because you just immediately think of a community or family. So, sometimes you have to think of it because, there's other things that have the similar acronyms as, CRF. Can't really think of them now, but, there's quite a few. So you always think of that first. But once you realize, oh, I know what they're talking about, then yeah, it seems like a community, family, everyone there has, same goal of a difference, and it's all good things, no bad things.
Nice. And how about you, Sondra?
Well, for me, I think I've already expressed that, that for me it's community. it's research, it's hope, and it's where I personally um, lean into for continued dreams for a cure for choroideremia, for my son and everybody else who is affected. And I feel very grateful for all of the amazing work that everybody who is on our past boards, current committees, who have just given so much of themselves so selflessly to bring us to where we are today and where we can be tomorrow. And that's really what I hold on to. And that's what the CRF means to me. I mean, you know, if you need something, call me. I'm never going to say no.
Mhm. And we thank you for that too. You've always been there. Sondra's always been there.
As have you. And I'm grateful.
Yeah. So Josh, I'm going to put you in a hypothetical situation, which may not be hypothetical, and who knows, it could happen at the next conference or something. So you come across a CHMer who's like 16 years old. Then you start talking. And what kind of life advice would you give them?
That's deep, Cory.
I know. I get there now and then.
I mean, I would just say, don't limit yourself, but also just think, like my mom always used to say, like, what does she say? Think, hold on, you don't have to say it because I know I'm going to remember. Think practically. So, you just got to think of something before you want to do it. Like you couldn't, oh, I want to go. Actually, you could fly a plane because you have someone with you, but, certain things you're not going to be able to do, thinking, practically. But really just, don't let it stop you before you think about it or possibly try it, because you don't know, something could sound, more, I don't know, more intense or more detail oriented than what it would be. Someone could say, oh, I want to go, I don't even know. Like, you can even use hiking in the same way, like, oh, I want to go hiking. And, immediately someone says, oh, well, you need vision for that because you could fall off a cliff. And I'm like, well, hiking, you do it with limitations. If you go on a hiking trail, you're not going to fall off the trail unless you really aren't paying attention. Or if, it's, there's certain things and, or, especially do it during the day. Don't, when you go somewhere to explore, make sure you come back before it starts getting dark. So, I had that experience when I went skiing one time in Maine. I was skiing, I was out there with a buddy. He was doing his own thing. I was doing my own thing. And then coming down the slope a few times, I was like, oh, what's this trail? And of course I decided to go it, which wasn't the smartest thing, but, I ended up taking that trail and it was actually the ski in. So the trail stops because you stop going down a hill behind like your rented condo, for the day. And of course, it starts getting dusk and then I'm like, oh, great. And then you have to walk, and, when you're in when you're in a snowboarding and you're in those boots, those are easy to walk in. But when you're in skis, those things are stiff and they're horrible. So, I start walking back and I start freaking out. And then I get excited because I see someone coming my way. And of course, it's my idiot friend, and then we're both walking, it's like, it's one of those things. And then I realized the next day when I looked at the sign, like way on the bottom in little letters, it says no access, no lift access. So it's just one of those things. But, luckily I had it in my mind to, oh, let me start walking while it's starting to get dark compared to, oh, let me just keep going down this trail, which would have been a problem because if you keep going, you would have been away from it. So it's really just, try not to let things stop you. It's, of course there's always limitations, and of course there's times it's going to be frustrating and sad and even depressing at times because you can't do it, but there's probably more things you can do than what you think. So
yeah, exactly. I started, I don't know, a couple of years ago, just for the heck of it, I started making stuff out of wood, disassembling wooden pallets and then making little tables or whatever. And, this year I'm going to make Adirondack chairs. And, the only downfall is that it really scares my wife more than anything else because I'm using a chop saw.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
Yeah, it kind of scares her a little bit, but
I'm sure.
but it's funny, I figured out, okay, well, how do I measure this? Because we can't, as a CHMer, okay, you pull the tape measure across something and you're trying to line it up with something else above it. You really, it's tough to judge, and I figured out my hack on that was, without turning on the blade, I'd bring the chop saw down so it's literally touching the measuring tape. And then I slide the piece of wood back and forth until I have it lined up. And then I remove the measuring tape, start up the chop saw, and cut the piece of wood. So sure, it takes me 2 minutes to get it properly measured and lined up, and 3 seconds to actually cut the wood, but I get it done. And it's not like I'm on a time limit anyway. So, and I still have all 10 fingers. So far. Yeah. So I decided I'm going to ramp things up this year. I'm going to attempt to make Adirondack chairs out of disassembled pallets, just because. And something, if I mess up, we have a fire pit. So either way, the wood gets you.
It's a win-win.
Exactly.
Right.
So, so Sondra, I'm going to throw the same thing to you. You meet a young mom, which you have done. And what kind of life advice would you give her?
I would give her the same life advice that you gave to me. And that would be, let them go, let them grow, let them just do what they feel that they can do, and just ask them to be reasonable, and just ask them. Josh always had the great benefit of good buddies. He always had good buddies who just always had his back.
Me
And
too.
yeah, always had his back. Always Josh always had great friends, and they spotted him all the time, but not to the point of avoiding walking through those bushes, or falling off your bike and crazy things that teenage boys and young boys do. But my advice that I would give to a mom is just let them do. Don't limit them, which is exactly what you and Artman told me 30 years ago, 28 years ago, however long ago it was. And that was probably the best advice that Jerry and I could have gotten, because as parents, we want to cuddle our kids, we want to keep them safe and stuff like that. So I think the best thing that we ever did for Joshua is just let him fly, and let him fly. And he always made good choices. So you got to know your kid too. But that would be my advice. And lean in, just lean in to this community as a resource. Find another mom, find another dad, find, someone, and have your child, however old they are. Josh's first conference, he met Danny, I think. He met Danny at his first conference, and they connected and spent some time together at that conference. And there was another young man whose name I don't recall right now. Do you, Josh?
No, I don't.
Yeah. And I know that you have a group, Cory, for kids to connect, right? Yeah. And I think that's really important, so that they have an outlet. Josh never wanted to avail himself to that, although it was available to him. But I think just lean in and don't be afraid to ask questions, and just let your kid be a kid, and God willing, they'll grow up to be as amazing as my son is. And I consider myself very, very lucky, very blessed that God gifted us with this child who's grown up to be this amazing young man.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you. And both Josh and Sondra, it was fun to reconnect and catch up a little bit too on our respective lives and everything. And I want to thank you for sharing. This is what it's all about, is building and strengthening the CHM family.
Yeah, and that is what we are.
Yeah. That's what it is. So again, thank you for coming. And for those who are watching, thank you for watching. And please don't forget to I almost forgot to thank our sponsor, Genentech, who provides funding for us we can do these things. So I could have been in trouble. So we will hopefully see you all next time on the next Meet a CHM Family Member. So again, thank you for watching.